This Chancellor's Medal is for contributions to our joint and common future. It's given to persons or institutions whose work has embodied many years of commitment to the future of our country, the planet, the dignity and well-being of humans everywhere, and the integrity of the natural environment on which all life, culture, security, and opportunities for human development and flowering depend. In view of the many achievements of our two wonderful and distinguished guests, their accomplishments and their efforts in raising our consciousness of the interdependence of all things, in promising a new understanding and deeper dialogue between science and religion, in seeking to reanimate human perceptions of the environment was sacred and thereby extend our understanding of life and our place in the universe, and in establishing an ethical framework to guide us in reinventing our lifestyles, our institutions, and policies to create a viable human presence on Earth. On behalf of the University of Massachusetts, Boston, I proudly award you, Dr. Mary Evelyn Tucker and Dr. John Grimm, the Chancellor's Medals, both in honor and in deep appreciation. Come on over here, man. I know you love doing this kind of thing. Come on. Come on, man. Ready? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen.
Well, that was quite a surprise. And we are deeply, deeply grateful. But what a morning. Those of you who heard Chancellor speak just a few moments ago, really, let's give a round of applause for what's happening here, thanks to you. And I also want to thank Assistant Chancellor Mortimer for arranging all of this, and special thanks to Provost Winston Langley, who's been a longtime friend, participant in the Harvard conferences, and we are extremely grateful to him, and to Professor Maria Ivanovas. Is she here somewhere? I know she is. There she is. Thank you. And to Robin Hannigan, who's the new Dean of the School for the Environment. You see, the Chancellor's style is catching, isn't it? To me, this deep sense of gratitude that you've established, the sense that we are a community working together, is essential to everything. And I was so deeply moved because in addition to hearing what you're saying and talking about what's happening at this university, it's very touching for me to be here too as my brother Paul Tucker enters his 35th year of teaching. And as a distinguished art historian who's brought so much to UMass Boston, but also the Boston area and well beyond, a deep appreciation for the arts on the Point, the Museum of Fine Arts, all the amazing Monet exhibits and so on. We are so proud of him. But I want to say, in relation to what this tone of this morning has been, this beginning of a new year, and it certainly is for you students an exciting one no matter which year you are, but it was our parents who really gave us that tremendous sense of giving back to society. And that's what I think UMass Boston represents in an extraordinary way. So we are humbled and grateful to be here, and special memories of my parents who really had that kind of ethic. So And also I want to say that John and I began our own teaching career at community colleges, and we were tremendously committed to public education, as we still are. I also want to invoke the spirit of Gus Beth, who was given an honorary degree here at graduation and gave a splendid talk that he shared with us. Gus Beth is one of the great leaders in the environment, was head of the School of the Environment where we teach at Yale, but he was also founder of National Resources Defense Council, World Resources Institute, and so on, head of UN Development Program. But he really gets the environment, and he gets and appreciates what you're doing here, which is why he actually brought us to Yale, because after 40 years of working on the environment, especially from the legal and policy angle, he realized something more was needed, and that was culture, religion, people, human behavior. And that had been kind of left out, which is why I'm so thrilled to know that the College of Liberal Arts is a big part of this new school. And I want to give a tremendous congratulations to the many years of work that this has taken to create a school for the environment, because I think there is nothing more important for the future of our planet than this kind of interdisciplinary work that in the College of Science and Mathematics will bring together these various departments of environmental, earth, and ocean sciences, the Mortimer Graduate School, I'll get the title right, the McCormick, Graduate School of Policy and Global Studies, is giving credit to you there, the College of Management, and the College of Liberal Arts. This is exactly the kind of model that we need. And with our theme today on sustainability, finding common ground, you've thought through these issues, I know, intensively. Your students have helped you drive some of the concerns, because all of this is about the next generations, the future generations who are sitting here with us, their children, their children's children. That's what we're working on behalf. And as our teacher Thomas Berry would say, it's actually on behalf of the children of all species, not only the human species. So I'm offering these 3 points as simply suggestions, small markers in the path of the creation of this new school. You've thought about them, I'm sure, and I look forward to further dialogue with students and faculty and administrators here. But what do we need in such schools? I think we need commitment, we need integration, and we need partnerships. Commitment, integration, and partnerships. First, a commitment to our world and to all future generations. That's at the heart of everything that we do, because there is such enormous suffering in our world. We know that, don't we? And we see it and we feel it every day when we take in the news, whether it's on the internet or television or the newspapers. It's hard to read them these days. It's hard to take it in. And so more than ever, we need this deep sense of commitment that has resilience, the possibility of renewal, and most of all, of hope, because hope is the fire that will light up your generation. And what I hope more than anything is that we will give an intergenerational handshake to the next generations of students working on these problems. You know, I study East Asia and been back and forth to Japan and China and India for the last 40 years. And I just returned last night from 10 days in China. And if you have any idea, as I'm sure you do from the newspapers, of what the problems are there, the levels of pollution, how many are aware of this in Beijing and elsewhere, the food safety problems, the pollution of air, of water, of soil, and so on, it's staggering. It is absolutely staggering. There are 66,000 protests a year now in China alone on environmental issues. And you multiply the number, the millions of people involved in this. That's what we're dedicating our lives to. the people on the ground, the unsung heroes who are the victims of rapid, relentless industrialization, modernization without thinking through the consequences, the unintended consequences. All of this wasn't intended. People want modernity, but what's the price of modernity? And as I got on the plane to return home, the front page of the International Herald Tribune, the huge story about farmers in the southwest of China, in Chengdu, who are committing suicide because their land is being taken, because their hope is being taken away, and so on. This is reaching across the planet. The problems of India and China will reshape the planet. 1 billion people in each of those countries are striving to enter into modernity. What are the consequences of that? What are the consequences of 250 million people being moved into cities? You're aware of this too? This is the new government policy. 250 million people over the next 10 to 20 years, the largest migrations of people in human history. What is this going to mean for our planet? So our neighbors are not just here in Dorchester, in Charlestown, or in Massachusetts, or in the US, or in North America. Our neighbors are planetary citizens all over the world, looking for such a school for the environment, looking most especially, I think, for environmental leaders, because this is the commitment of young people. The leaders who spoke here this morning, I was very impressed with their introductions of the various speakers. The students at Yale are saying, we want to be environmental leaders. We don't give up on the future. We know what's at stake. And this generation has absorbed more of the environmental news, the social disruptions, the political challenges that Winston outlined so powerfully than any other generation. We have to support them in every way possible. And that means not only with the education, but with the human spirit, the human heart. Because if we lose that, we lose everything. And that's what education is about in the spirit that the Chancellor spoke this morning. This gratitude for life, for planetary life in which we dwell and have our meaning. So this commitment that I'm outlining, then, if we see it historically, we're part of 10,000 years right now of an agricultural revolution that started 10,000, 12,000 years ago, of an industrial revolution that's not more than really 300 years old, of an information revolution that is maybe 50 years old, and now a sustainability revolution that is upon us with such urgency, with such creative opportunity, with such doors opening for the human spirit to enter with this deep sense of commitment and opportunity, because everyone in the room knows what's at stake. Is it the closing down of life systems, or is it the opening up of the human spirit to renewal, to creativity, to resilience? What will our children say to us? In 150,000 years of being Homo sapiens sapiens, we still have to earn our last name. Where is the wisdom that will come through? It's going to come through in this school for the environment with the leadership here. Because clearly, my second point is what you have already thought about, is integrated programs, genuinely integrated programs, and you have the opportunity here, as we don't even at Yale, to do interdisciplinary, multicultural, transnational work as was outlined, because there's a freedom and creativity here. It's not about your CV, it's about a common good. And that's what academia should be about a common good. Interdisciplinary work requires that. Robin was suggesting, how do we create these conversations? Again, environmental studies, as almost no other area, has this possibility. And why is it that science, policy, management, and liberal arts will come together in new conversations? And you have to understand as students, these are new conversations for the faculty, right? So push them to have those conversations, to integrate. I understand the School of Management is already about climate and energy in these issues. How fantastic is that? Most management schools are not. Again, you have opportunity here. So we have said all along, science and social science are necessary but not sufficient. We need humanities. We need the liberal arts, who Robin assures us are driving this action, to say there is intrinsic value in the natural world. These are not just ecosystems that are valuable to us for fisheries, for forestry, for water, and so on. They are intrinsically valuable. And what does that mean for our generations? The liberal arts can help us to understand that from history, from literature, from art, from music. Why is this so important? Because two scientists recently said to me at Yale, after showing this film, Journey of the Universe, which I look forward to coming back and showing at some point with John here at the university. These two scientists who actually appreciated the film said, they said to me, what are you really trying to do there? I said, we're trying to do a new fusion of science and humanities, of the best that modern science has, from the bio and geological and physical sciences and so on, with a sense of meaning and purpose. Why are we here? It's not why we get up in the morning. Why are we here? These two scientists, without missing a beat, said, there's no meaning out there. There's no purpose out there whatsoever. I would call that ideology, you see? There's no meaning in the natural world, which is in part why we can destroy it, why we can blow mountaintops off, why we can have a tar sands up in Canada that is an abomination to the boreal forests up there. What are we doing to living systems? These are alive. These are beautiful. They have taken 4.6 billion years just here on Earth to evolve. And if you take the whole journey of the universe, it's 13.7 billion years of creative powers that we are diminishing. Can we allow that to happen in our lifetime? I don't think so, because we have the creativity, the energy, the depth, the meditative powers of people like Winston. There's a meditative power there that brings conversation into being. So let me just say in conclusion, because the partnerships were so clear, I'm talking about commitments, integrated interdisciplinary work, and finally partnerships. I hope we at Yale can establish a partnership with this new school for the environment, because we have a lot to learn. We have a lot to learn. From the elite schools, we need to be pushed constantly, not just from the periphery, from the hearts of our communities. This is what America is about, this kind of bubbling up of creative energy that you have here, and Yale needs to learn from it. Our school needs to learn from it. So let me just say then, the partnerships in a school like this, they can be local. Boston Harbor cleanup is a great story. No doubt there's more to do. They can be continental. We're continental people. The tar sands call for our response. The Keystone Pipeline calls for our response. The global challenges I've mentioned in China, in Africa, in Latin America are extraordinary. Why? People are now environmental refugees all over the world, from drought, from food issues. Climate change is affecting everyone, every fauna, and flora. The glaciers are melting. We have to respond to these challenges. We cannot pollute our air, our soil, and our water indefinitely. We know that. So the invitation then is, and I know you will be bold and creative in your partnerships. This sense, let me conclude with what happened in China just in these last few days. We began these partnerships at Harvard in the mid-90s, almost 20 years ago, not expecting or not understanding what might happen from saying culture, religion, ethics matter for the future of our planet. It can't be just science and policy solving environmental problems. It was new then. There were no foundations who were really interested in it. Even talking to bringing the lecturers and professors on board, they were like, what? I've studied my things in the past. I'm like, yes, but it's the present we have to speak to. So this sense then of saying Confucianism in ecology, Taoism in ecology, Buddhism in ecology has something to say in China. Those books that Winston mentioned have now been translated into Chinese. And what happened just this past week is that in China, a new organization was set up called the International Confucian Ecological Alliance, saying our traditions have to be part of our ethics for the environment. This cultural diversity has got to be part of the equation. So in 15 years, this conference was concentrating on this. And on a government level, let's think about our levels here. The theme in the National Congress in November with the President and the Prime Minister of China was ecological civilization. How can ecological civilization be created in China? Isn't that extraordinary? The provincial government of Hunan came to this conference. The governor and several of the major political figures in that province of 20 million people came to this conference because they want to figure out how to create ecological civilization. So my challenge to all of us is how are we going to create here in North America an ecological civilization that will be in dialogue with people around the world who are looking for leadership from us too. I think it's going to begin here at the School for the Environment. I look forward to coming back again, and I wish you every success. Thank you.
I join with Mary Evelyn in expressing thanks to those who brought us here, especially Chancellor, Provost, and Teresa Mortimer. Thank you for your kindness in welcoming us. I give thanks to Mashpee, Wampanoag, Massachusetts elders for coming to their country and ask their permission to speak. And I want to encourage all of you for the modeling that Chancellor Motley and Provost Langley gave to us this morning. Their incredible courage, having given this honor before they had even heard me speak. I'm reminded of this moment bearing such a burden of the anthropologist Thomas Murphy, who I heard at Mary Evelyn's graduation when she received her PhD. And Thomas Murphy did exceptional anthropological research, but his last project was the most incredible. He had not only a debilitating but a terminal disease, and before he died, he did not only research but reflection and wrote a remarkable prize-winning book on his own disease. And at that graduation, when he received the accolades of his peers, he said, I received this, of course, with two fears. I feel those same fears today, Chancellor. The fear of never being found and the fear of being found out. Because, you know, someone who comes from North Dakota, as I do, I grew up with the wind at my back, keeping me up on my heels as a child. And when you grow up with that interaction, you begin to think about those that help you, those that make life possible. And so I feel sometimes when I hear Native elders, say among the Haudenosaunee people of New York State, when they give gratitude in their Thanksgiving prayer, they look at the horizon from the sky down, and that Thanksgiving prayer may literally take hours to recite as they go through their thanks to each of the beings that they see in the horizon, that they literally are looking at as they go down into the ground. It's that kind of thanks that I feel today, thinking about your School of Environment as it comes up. When I came east to do my studies, I met the mentor, our teacher, Thomas Berry, whom Mary Evelyn has referenced also. And Thomas Berry, in his works, Dream of the Earth and Great Work, and others, but he makes in those works a challenge. And he uses a phrase that I wanted to reflect with you this morning in light of the opportunity to speak with you about environmental issues. He raised the challenge that what we need to do as those who now fluoresce on this earth, we humans need to reinvent ourselves at the species level. Reinvent ourselves at the species level. In some ways, I don't think it's difficult to enter into the word reinvent. We've heard it several times this morning, and something about it is always new. It has that crackle to it, to reinvent ourselves. I think the crackle is that it's not only activates our imagination of who I am, but it also calls forth the sense of disciplinary focus. I can do this. I think about all of us in this room. We're constantly reinventing ourselves. What seems challenging about Thomas Berry's metaphors here is when he uses the word species level. He was groping for something foundational in the human, and maybe to echo Mary Evelyn's quantifying terms, is he searching about 4.6 billion years of Earth reality in which we have come out of this earth? Or is he looking at 13.7 billion years, the billions of Earth years and the billions of universe years? I think he's moving in that realm. But there's another dynamic that I wanted to think about with you today, and that's in relationship to my own field. My studies are with indigenous peoples, especially American Indians, Native Americans, First Nations. Students ask me, what's the right term? I use all of those terms, but I also try to search out what's the name that people use for themselves. So Mashpee, Wampanoag. I study with Apsaloke peoples in Montana. In English, they're called Crow peoples. So that level of entry into an understanding. It's that sense of indigenous knowledge, then, that I wanted to bring to this question of reinventing ourselves at the species level. If we think of the word species, in my mind, I look around and I see ourselves as a particular mammalian species, and we're aware of other mammals, and we share that species-wide characteristics, and we think of birds and insects and the variety of species that we know on this planet. And in the scientific perspective, this analytical dimension, this analytical approach is a very powerful hermeneutic, a way of knowing what species are, namely to analyze, to separate out. So we can speak of very distinct species. And I wonder if that's what Thomas Berry was after, reinvention at the species level. Perhaps, But I think he also had in mind something that he had encountered with indigenous peoples, and something that now all of us know, and that will be part of already is part of the ecological understanding here, and will be part of the vision forward of the School of Environmental Studies, that there is no species that exists apart from its interaction with others. So we speak of, say, a niche, but that niche is obviously in relationship to other niches. It's intriguing to me also that my understanding of the word species, it was first used by a natural theologian, John Ray, in the mid-17th century, when he coined the term species, and he had an understanding of the relationship of divine creation to creatures. So he was interested in the relational character. And I think that's what's surfacing again, and that's what I think indigenous people are bringing their own understanding, indigenous knowledge, to this particular search. Namely, no species exists in itself, but always in relationship. But the tensions that surface when we consider ways of knowing between indigenous communities and, say, an analytical approach in contemporary science, those tensions also produce new ways of reinventing ourselves. For example, I'm reminded of the shield on the podium here. The shield pictures what I would presume to be again, Massachusetts Wampanoag or Mashpee warrior who stands near a star. So the cosmological dynamic is very interesting in this shield. And then above it is an arm with a sword. The relationship is very interesting, isn't it? It evokes in all of us, I think, a sense of the history of the encounter between native peoples and some dominating attitude. I wanted to wonder with all of you if maybe the word species, as we've coined it, as an independent, separate, stand-apart body of existence, is in that dominating mode. And part of what our effort to reinvent ourselves is to find new language, not to erase. We cannot erase what the shield teaches us, but there's somehow a way of reflecting upon this relationship that we confront, that we begin to see a language past domination and into the plurality of voices, of species that we are, and the way in which we speak to one another. Let me draw my remarks to a close with these stories. Among Yupik peoples in Alaska and Inuviac peoples in the Arctic region of Canada, there are some interesting examples of this tension between modes of knowing. And so it's this question of ways of knowing that I'm moving towards. In indigenous knowledge, we have become aware of a subcategory, traditional environmental knowledge, a sense that native peoples interacting with their bioregion have come to understand plant and biodiversity and the life in their region, the seasonal life, the sense of the geographic dimensions. They have come to understand it in rather remarkable ways. I remember when I first attended a ceremony among the Crow that they call Ashkise Lisua. Ashkise is the big lodge. It's the universe. They build a symbolic lodge of the universe. Lisua, to dance in that lodge. We outsiders have called this ceremonial Sundance. You can catch the reverberation, and yet what's missed? There's a good effort there, but something is missed too. When I first attended a Sundance, an incredible storm came over the mountain, the Bighorn Mountains where we were, and it threatened to just blow this lodge apart, and it separated, and instead went to Billings, Montana, and Sheridan, Wyoming, and roughed their hair up a bit. I said to the elders the next day, this is a remarkable testimonial to traditional environmental knowledge, that you built this lodge or you have this ceremony in place where you know the meteorological conditions are split. And the elder looked at me and said, oh no, storms come through here all the time. But the power of the Sundance, that's the capacity to split the storm. So again, I had this scientific reading, but his traditional environmental knowledge, he had a different reading of it. Among Yupik and Inuviac people, their reading of animals is very interesting in this regard of reinventing ourselves at the species level. Their relationship with geese as a species is that when they hunt geese, the geese come in dreams or in visions and tell the hunter that they have permission to hunt. Of course, from a psychological or scientific perspective, dreams and visions might be read as entirely subjective. So it's interesting, isn't it, that we could take that particular reading and move it into a completely psychological realm of understanding. But think for a moment, if you live in a region where you have intimate exchange with that bioregion throughout your life, isn't it possible that animals would come in your dreams? Isn't it possible that you might have visionary, seeing experiences of these animals? So that the way our exchange with the environment is threaded into our lives, I think that's where we're headed also in reinventing ourselves at the species level. That's what I was hearing in the Chancellor's remarks about our relationship to the bay. Among the Yupik, to touch geese, especially during the nesting period, is deeply problematic. It's forbidden. For resource managers in the Yupik area, the tagging of geese is the most insightful manner for learning migratory patterns and also reproductive patterns. So here we have this tension, this incredible tension between how do you relate to these animals? Dreams and vision, tagging, monitoring. These have been tensions which have caused real problems between the resource management community and the elders in these regions. But gradually, there are conversations, and there are new ways of understanding that are emerging in which indigenous knowledge and traditional environmental knowledge are no longer simply fit into scientific modes, but are given their own place in the dialogue. So that sense of understanding of ourselves, reinventing ourselves at the species level, I see it happening in this relationship resource management level. Among the Inuviac people in the northern Arctic regions, a young man had a dream of a muskox. It happened that completely out of season, a muskox appeared at the village. The young man went to the elders and explained his dreams, and the elders said, go and shoot that muskox. He did. He distributed the meat in a traditional way, and he was arrested by the game management authorities. The legal prohibition was the hunting season regulation. The traditional opening here was that the animal had given itself to this young man for distribution to the community. So again, we have these examples where we are beginning to see indigenous knowledge and traditional environmental knowledge enter into conversation in all of the tensions that are embedded in this world around us, yea, even into this shield on the podium that I speak of. But in the midst of these tensions, I think we come with three realizations, and I feel Thomas Berry's voice again in my thoughts when he raises that question of reinventing ourselves at the species level. That he realized difference, species difference. And he realized uniqueness, subjectivity, the sense of each species has a unique way of coming to the water hole. And yet, communion. We all go to the water hole. We all participate in that exchange of life-giving and life-taking. And it's that sense of differentiation, subjectivity, and communion that are the well springs bubbling up, I think, in this reinvention enterprise that all of us undertake. And I look forward to having occasion to speak with you again. I hope.